Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the February 20th, 2020 City of Nashua Planning Board. Mr. Secretary, can you go ahead and call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Donches, Mike Peterson, Scott Leclerc,
Here.
Adam Varley,
Here.
Edward Weber, here, Alderman David Tenza,
Present.
Alderman Jan Smith, Maggie Harper,
Here.
Bob Bollinger,
Here.
Larry Hirsch,
Here.
oh, David Hudson.
Dan Hudson, yeah.
Dan.
Present. Yeah.
All right. So we have a quorum. We'll go ahead and move forward. Next up on the agenda, we have approval of minutes. We have in front of us minutes from the February 6th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. Has anybody had a chance to take a look at these? I want to make a motion as to whether they're could be accepted as submitted or need amendments.
So moved, Mr. Chair?
All right, so Mr. Bollinger, motion to approve as written.
Yes, sir.
A second by Mr. Varley. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And abstentions?
Yep.
So there's 3 abstentions, Ed, you get that? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 3? 503.
Yeah.
Okay, so that motion passes. Communications?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. There is one correspondence tonight. The 26th Annual Spring Planning and Zoning Conference will be held on Saturday, May 30th, 2020, at the Grapponi Conference Center in Concord. Sign-up starts on April 6, 2019, and you can provide us with your credit card bills for reimbursement when whoever decides to sign up and go.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Next up, report of Chairman, Committee, and Liaison. Anything, Ed?
I have nothing.
Okay,
We have
anybody
one
else?
later this month.
Okay, so I have reports from the Capital Improvement Committee, but we have it at the end of the meeting for discussion on the actual improvements program, so I'll save my remarks until that time. Okay. So, moving forward, just to clarify, everybody in the audience here is either an applicant or,
Mr. Walker
yeah, so
Do the other one first.
no public here for testimony?
Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the reading of the procedure of the meeting and move right on to going through the hearing here. So first up, old business conditional special use permits, there are none. Second up, old business subdivision plans, there are none. Next up, old business site plans, there are none. New business conditional special use permits, there are none. New business subdivision plan, the Terrell Holt Family Revocable Trust, 2005 owner, Joshua and Caleb Becker, B&A Property Preservation LLC applicant. This is an application and acceptance of a proposed lot line relocation and subdivision for property located at 26 Groton Road. We have a motion from the board as to whether this application is ready to take jurisdiction.
So moved, Mr. Chair?
So we have a motion by Mr. Bollinger to take jurisdiction. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hirsch. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? That motion passes. Okay, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Chris Gaida with Fieldstone Land Consultants. Place of business is 206 Elm Street, Milford, New Hampshire. And I'm representing B&A Construction tonight. This is a fairly straightforward lot line adjustment. The existing lots are in the,
Can you just grab the mic maybe and just take it with you? Just 'cause-
I always try to stretch it. The existing lot is in the orange here and the blue. So the proposed lot is basically taking this blue line here and shrinking it down to the pink line, creating a conforming lot here, but with a smaller lot size. The soils out here are all Hinckley, sands and gravels, well-drained. We did test pits out here that were witnessed by the health department. We have a septic design basically pending with the health department, and everything's fairly straightforward. There was a variance, I believe, in your packet to request the construction of a new home with the existing house still in place, but that's going to be raised as of, I believe it's September, this coming September, was one of the conditions of that variance to allow the construction of the new home here. Meets all of the requirements. Don't know if there's any other questions.
No, just to clarify, so the zoning requirement was that can you just repeat that?
Oh, sure. So there's an existing home here.
Yep,
That's 26 Groton Road.
Right.
And the variance was to allow for two houses on a single lot. And basically, there's existing homes here. It's more of like an office trailer, and there's a commercial business here. So to allow for basically two dwellings on a single lot
Yeah.
for a short time period.
oh, for a period.
Until, right, September this year.
Okay, all right, thanks. Mr. Ballinger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you talk a little bit about where the proposed driveway locations would be? I don't see that depicted on the plans.
Sure, yeah, I didn't highlight it, I apologize. It's right here, so it comes down here into the,
Yeah, can you maybe point to it on that plan, just because we are on air tonight, and
oh, yeah, yeah,
one on there, and people would be able to see it a little bit. Thanks.
right in here
Yep, great.
is the proposed driveway. There's an existing driveway here. It's actually like a horseshoe driveway, and there's another driveway that accesses it's right in here for this one.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have there been any site distance measurements or other determinations with regard to basic safety criteria of
Yes.
driveway locations?
Yep, so there's excellent site distance, well over the 400 feet requirements. There will be also a DOT permit, being a state road, to upgrade the driveway permit there.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair, I believe this is a compact section. You may not need a state DOT driveway permit, but I will
Okay.
leave that to staff to work out.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you for the
Yep.
clarifications on the site distance.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Mr. Weber?
I have for staff,
Sure.
seeing that this is a site subdivision, is there usually a sidewalk donation?
Well, this is actually just a lot line relocation.
Okay, it said subdivision on the thing.
Yeah, it's considered under the subdivision regulations. It's just a lot line adjustment. They're not creating any new lots with this. And actually, tomorrow morning, we have a meeting with Fieldstone Landscaping about a site plan for development of the other lot, and then we would take a look at sidewalks for that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no other.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions for the applicant or staff over in the hearing? Thanks, hearing none.
Thank
There's nobody in the audience that isn't an applicant that has any concerns or questions for the applicant, so, okay, so we're good there. Any other questions before I close the hearing? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the hearing, open the meeting. So pretty straightforward, lot line adjustment. Just, staff's, you're already working on a sort of a site plan that falls onto this, so.
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We're going to develop the site.
Right, okay, so, yeah, in my opinion, we'd address most of the sort of sidewalk and other site things in the site plan component that follows. So I don't have any sort of concerns on my end, and I welcome any discussion from anybody. No? Okay, anybody who want to make a motion? Mr. Varley?
I would make a excuse me, I would make a motion to approve new business number 1, subdivision plan, finding that it does meet the requirements outlined in subdivision NRO section 190-138G, with a total of 6 stipulations. The first being a waiver request from section 190-282B9, reading, "Is granted will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulation." The second stipulation also being a waiver request of section 190-282A, reading, "Is granted will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulation." And then stipulations 3 through 6 as written in the staff report.
Okay, so we have that motion to approve new business number 1 with the stipulations as stated by Mr. Varley. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Weber. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? That motion passes. Thanks. Okay, next up, new business, case number 2. This is a new business site plan. John J. Flatley Company owner, application and acceptance of proposed 1-year extension for a site plan amendment to NR 2165 to develop a portion of the property into 28 townhouse units with associated site improvements. This property is located at 100 through 300 Innovative Way. This is something that was postponed from earlier meetings, so I guess, can I have a motion as to whether this application for extension is ready for us to take jurisdiction?
So moved.
So we have a motion to take jurisdiction by Mr. Hirsch. Do we have a second on that? Second by Mr. Ballinger. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That motion passes. Okay, you're up. Thanks.
My name is Kevin Walker from John Flatley Company. Good evening.
We can hear you.
There we go. You're good.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a copy of the plan? I can come up and hand one out
You
to you if
can
you
just
want.
pass it to Dan if you want right there, and then we'll send it around. Thanks. I think we have seen it before, yeah. Thank you.
So as you read in, we are looking for a 1-year extension on the approval of the site plan. There have been no changes regulation-wise, no changes plan-wise. We're currently in the process of getting some bids, and hopefully within the next year, if not less, we get to get rolling out there. Just to refresh everyone, it's a 28-unit townhouse development. There are going to be 7 pods of 4. We've got an approved street name from the city, and all the permits are in force from both the state and the city. We'll be bringing, extending water up from about where the hotel is, the Homewood Suites,
Yep.
and extending sewer to a stub that we left there when the hotel was built.
Okay, all right.
That's the short of it. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
No, I mean, no modifications to the site plan that are intended, and you think the timing is for starting construction?
I think so. Yeah, we're starting to go through some bids and whatnot, and if the numbers work, then we're planning on getting going on it.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant, by the board? Okay, any questions for staff while we're in the hearing? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the hearing, open the meeting. So this is just an extension. This is something we looked at a while ago here. You know, a lot that, you know, obviously there's been a bunch of development on that we've looked at, this board has looked at several times. Any other discussion items, Mr. Ballinger?
Just one, Mr. Chair. I
Yep.
just noting the date of the original approval, December 7th of 2017.
Right.
I didn't know how customary it was. Is there a finite time limit whereby this board would not consider an extension? And I understanding that the plan is not materially changed, you know, but we're approaching, you know, we're over 2 years now, and it's more of a procedural question in general for the board. And staff may wish to chime in on that as well.
Sure. I mean, in my experience, we 1 or 2 years is not super uncommon, but the biggest impact that you would think about would be if there have been like significant changes around the particular site that may have, impacted things differently or whatever.
Yeah, or significant changes in the ordinances.
Yeah, or the
That
ordinances.
weren't in place when we approved the plan.
Yeah, this particular development, we have seen some, like, considerable, a lot of master plans of it essentially over time, so, and I think when we approved this the last time around, this was reasonably consistent with the master planning that had been done before that, so.
There hasn't been any,
Right, yeah,
there hasn't been any significant traffic increase, things like that.
right.
Right, because we've talked, at this site more generally, there's been a lot of discussion when they've come before us for new projects about ultimately there's going to need to be traffic improvements on Smithbrook Road. And, when we originally approved this plan, the understanding was that was going to, that was really gonna be coming with additional development that might be further down the road, but that sort of process is still in the works and underway. So I think, yeah, as Ed's suggesting, it's not, I don't think that there are as major changes. We've certainly approved multiple extensions before. I think the questions probably start to get a little tougher, after the second extension of, if there's no movement after that.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Yep, staff.
The applicant did apply for an extension before the deadline. It's just that because of the holidays, and we only had, didn't have meetings, and they had asked for an extension, which is why it's now on this agenda, but they did apply before the deadline. And typically, the board will allow for up to 3 extensions, unless something has significantly changed. And at that point, they might say, well, you're going to have to come back for full planning board approval. But they did apply in time, so that's not an issue.
Must be in the second one.
Okay, any other discussion items? Anybody willing to make a motion? Alderman Tenza.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that, as it relates to new business, case 2, site plan 1-year extension for the John J. Fatley Company for a site plan amendment to NR 2165 to construct a 28-unit townhouse, that the planning board make a determination that the plan does meet the requirements as outlined in the site plan NRO section 190-146D. That the board, with the one stipulation as included, that all prior conditions of approval are incorporated here and made part of this plan unless otherwise determined by the planning board.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion to approve this extension with the stipulation as indicated by Alderman Tenza. Do we have a second on that? Second by Ms. Harper. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? That motion passes. Thanks. Okay. All right, moving on. Next up is on other business. We don't have a tentative agenda to look at. But following that, we have a referral of the FY 2021 Capital Improvements Program from the Capital Improvements Committee to us. So I'll just take a minute. So I'm on this board or this subcommittee, and we have met with all of the city departments over the last sort of 2.5 months, maybe or so, and sat through all their presentations and their looking at their priorities and sort of, if you haven't seen this document before, it sort of essentially sort of racks and stacks into groups, not necessarily 1, 2, 3, but sort of Group A, Group B, Group C in long-term and short-term. And the priorities as sort of reflected by the departments, but as prioritized into the rankings by the Capital Improvements Committee ourselves. Good process. The project gets talked about, looked at. So I don't have any concerns with the plan or as a program as presented, but happy to have any discussion or if staff wants to add anything more on it. Generally speaking, what we owe as a motion out of this is a referral, a positive referral or sort of a negative, or it can be a positive with comments if we think something's not, ranked properly. And essentially this ends up with the aldermen.
Right, it's gonna be going to the Board of Aldermen in
They're the
March.
ones that actually make a decision on whether something actually gets funded or not. This is just an input document for that process, among other inputs, I'm sure. I don't know, Alderman Tenza, anything you want to say about how that works, or,
No, I mean, I think that the mayor and and a lot of the projects that are on this list have been projects that the city has wanted to do for a long time. So every year, the mayor and then the Board of Aldermen will look and see what we can fund, what absolutely needs to be funded, and include that in the city budget, which comes out, by June 30th each year.
any comments or questions, discussions you want to make? All right. If none, would anybody be willing to make a motion regarding the?
Sorry, I just have just one quick
Yep,
question.
Sure, yep.
With respect to the master plan funding, is that?
Yes.
Is the expectation that's principally for hiring a consultant, or
That is correct, yeah. What page is that on? That's on
page 19?
19, yeah. Yeah, that's a portion of it, actually, I
Right.
think, it's broken up into years, so the master plan is more than a one-year funding component, but yeah, that's intended to get the consultant on board, and I think that those RFPs are,
Actually,
Plan now, right?
they came in, the bids were in, we got 8 responses, and we are in the process of going through them right now.
yeah, so, moving, yeah. Good. Mr. Weber?
On that, is there consultant fees for Nashua Regional Planning Commission
Say it
For
again?
for them,
for them? Because we may be asking consultant because they're really good at master plan development and stuff like
I
that.
think we're gonna be working with them
Yeah.
together to do this project. We're gonna try to use them as a resource as much as possible.
That's what I'm talking about. I
Yeah.
don't know if it was gonna be a consultant fee or they just volunteer their time.
I don't
I
know.
doubt that, but.
Not sure, yeah, on that question, yeah.
Yeah, it has a cloud.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Mr. Ballinger?
Just a general comment, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Priority item was B5, Department of Public Works, with regard to Everyday Counts 5, safe transportation.
What page are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on page 27.
There are a lot of similar numbered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons, it's my understanding that the New Hampshire Department of Transportation is working on some guidance with regard to their installation, and I just want to point out that conformity with any statutory recommendations or guidelines that the state is offering, I think is wise, and I think that's the type of improvement. While
Yep.
there's an obvious safety benefit there, I think they're not intended for all situations, and I would just
Yeah,
stress that, proper consultation
Right.
be sought with appropriate parties. So.
yeah, probably Dan can take a note on that.
Yes.
This is his group,
Duly
right?
noted.
So, excellent, yeah. Probably don't need to stipulate it if he's right here again. Yeah, yeah. Great, appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? No? Anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Varley?
I would like to make a motion that the board offer a favorable recommendation on the fiscal year 2021 capital improvements program as prepared by the Capital Improvements Committee, or Subcommittee.
So we have a motion to, for a favorable recommendation on the FY 2021 Capital Improvements Program from Mr. Varley, or as submitted. Do we have a second on that? Second by Mr. Weber. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion, no, anybody against?
Abstain, Mr. Chair.
One abstention? Okay, you get that, Mr. Ballinger?
7,
Okay.
0, 1.
All right. So 701, that motion passes. Okay. The only discussion item I'd kind of bring up for us right now maybe is just to note that it sounds like right now the March 5th is,
We have no cases for the March 5th, so if you want to make a motion to cancel the meeting, and we'll have one March 19th.
yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Want to make a motion to cancel March 5th, 2020?
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Weber to cancel the March 5th, 2020 meeting, with the understanding that we don't have anything on the docket for that day. Does anybody have a second for that?
Just point of clarification, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, hit the second first, if you don't mind.
Sure, certainly. Second.
Okay, so we have a second. Discussion, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Is that subject to change? I don't know if the deadline has already passed for submitting.
The deadline's already passed
It
for
has,
butter
okay.
notifications. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to.
Thank you for the clarification.
Great. Any further questions or comments?
Discussion
Or discussion?
before, not on this, so.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? That motion passes. Okay. So we'll take that one off. Do you, probably should send an email out to the group.
We
just-
will, we have to post it as well.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Any other discussion items,
Yeah.
Mr. Weber?
Just one of the things that was said earlier, typically on that spring planning and zoning conference, when they open, they have on their website, you can actually just check it off to have the city pay for it, so you don't have to write a check or do that. It'll be right there for you to bill. It's typical of this one, that they'll typically, you don't have to pay for it out of your pocket or out of a credit card and then get your receipts and do all that other stuff. They just have on their website, when you go there, there's a check mark at the bottom to
Okay,
to do that, so.
thanks.
It's a great, I've been to a lot of them, and they're great informational things to go to. It's really got a lot of information, upgrades, law stuff. They talk, there's a whole session of things that, for legal stuff that comes before the board. Then there's all kinds of other subject matters that come in the second meeting. So it is packed with solid information for panels, or this panel.
Okay, thanks.
Do you know what the URL is for that website?
It's on this.
Yeah, it's on this,
On the
on the flyer.
that was in your, it's in that, yeah, that packet, the middle one. Should be in
I
there.
got it.
Any other discussion item?
It's good food.
All right, in hearing no other discussion items, does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Hirsch. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, or none? So that motion passes, and we are adjourned at 7:30.